There's the PSN normal, the PSN Pro, and then there's the PSN low spec, and that's what this could be. Is there a chance that Sony's PlayStation Vita could still survive? We're going to be talking about all that and more, but first, coffee. Alright, so actually the coffee that we're drinking today is the same coffee that I drank in the previous episode because not much time has passed by. It's from Komeda. It's from Komeda Coffee. I just, for a moment, forgot the name. These are the same beans that in a previous episode I noticed had two different colors. I guess they're Brazil and Colombia? Now you might be wondering, why would I make a video about PS Vita when it has become almost completely irrelevant on the whole video game scene and the handheld gaming scene? Well, in the previous video which I made, which I tried to give my honest opinions about the Nintendo Switch and how I thought it might still fail depending on how Nintendo plays their cards. I have nothing but positive thoughts for the Switch, I just don't want it to fail, and so I figured it was probably wise to talk about all the things that might go wrong so that we can prevent them from going wrong. And let's talk about something totally ridiculous, like how could potentially Sony come back into the handheld market? By the way, let's grind! I'm holding my PS Vita here, and as you'll have seen in previous videos I made recently, I've actually not been playing my Switch as much. That doesn't mean I don't like it, I just haven't been finding as many reasons to play my Switch as I have been my PS Vita. I've been like rediscovering a lot of stuff that I like. In fact, the culture of bringing my Switch around places with me is what reminded me that, hey, now that I'm sitting here with my Switch and kind of wondering what to do because I'm kind of done with the games that I already own, that's kind of what made me want to play my PS Vita, because I was like, hey, I've run out of stuff to play on my Switch. I would actually prefer to be playing my Switch, it's just that all the stuff that I've got on it, I've already finished. Well, not finished, but I'm kind of done with it for now. And I just ended up wanting to play something on the train still, and ended up bringing my PS Vita around with me. So it was actually a really great console, and it started to remind me about all the great things about the PS Vita, and where Nintendo succeeds, and specifically excels, is they've got all their Mario games, Zelda games, and Nintendo exclusive stuff that you would buy a Switch for, whereas the Vita had a lot of games that could have been on 3DS but could also have been on Vita, and so it doesn't have quite as many exclusives. Sony has always struggled with the characters that they've got exclusive to Sony platforms, because they're characters like Parappa the Rapper. If you remember, that there was a game called, I think it was called Battle Royale or Battle All-Star. I can't even remember the name of it, but it looked really bad. I played a demo of it and I was like, I don't need this game. Anyway, the problem is that with Nintendo characters, because they have something about them which makes them easier to put into one game, like Smash Brothers, it for some reason it just didn't work for Sony. That's a part of the battle that's difficult for Sony to fight, their exclusive characters. So if Sony were to come back into the market and make a handheld, first the question we need to ask is, why? Why would Sony want to do that? And I think the Switch is really showing that people still do have an interest in playing games on the go, portably. I mean, obviously it's like 50% just that people want to play more Nintendo games, they don't really want to bring it outside. But I think the reason that Switch has caused so much interest online and around the world is that it is also a portable thing. And when you think about how many people play mobile games, it proves that people would rather not be idle. They would rather be doing something. And if you could make your portable console portable enough, if you could make it easy enough to bring this around without adding extra bulk to your purse, rucksack, or whatever bag you're using, then I think there's perfectly good reason that a handheld console could succeed. And I'm saying another handheld console, not just the Switch, not just 3DS. I think Sony has a lot to offer if they wanted to make another one of these. By the way, the water's just boiled, so I'm just gonna go and grab it. If you haven't seen any previous episode, this is my Balmoo. Ah, it's hot! Don't touch the spout, it's hot. I love this pot because you boil the water in it and then you pour it straight out of the spout coming from the pot. Before I used to pour it into a separate pot with a large spout. I don't actually have a cup. What am I doing? Going back to the topic about Sony, whether there's a market for another handheld console, I think there absolutely is. I think if they can play their cards right, and if they convince enough people who are playing mobile games on their phones, it's starting to feel like there's something missing, like there's something about these games which seems vacuous and empty. There's like something hollow about the experience. I think people are eventually going to start realizing that in the coming years. They're going to be like, hey, I do like playing on the go. It's just that all the games that I've got seem to be really boring. And why is that? And it's because, well, freemium, pay to win, all these concepts about mobile gaming, which I think are going to eventually, one, evolve, and two, start to piss people off. I think people are going to start coming back to portable gaming because they're going to realize that it's now very possible to have incredibly beautiful graphics on a tiny little device like this. This is the Vita. It came out in 2011? I think it came out in winter 2011 in Japan. That's like 6 years ago, and it still has some of the best graphics anywhere. Maybe not HD graphics, but they are really good graphics. When I say good, I mean they can still you can still fight against, you know, the kind of games that are coming out on Switch. Maybe they don't all run at 60 FPS, but a lot of them do actually. And the ones that don't, you know, they run at a solid 30 FPS, and they offer a very stable gaming situation. It doesn't crash, is what I mean. So hold on, let me just move the camera down because I've got the coffee ready. Alright, so let's take it as a given that Sony thinks that the portable gaming market is big enough to warrant having another handheld. I have a very strong feeling that they do believe this, and that they're just kind of once bitten, twice shy because it didn't go so well with the Vita. But I think that if they can just avoid a number of the mistakes that they made, and it's not really fair to call them mistakes, it's just things that didn't work out so well with the Vita, then I think they have actually quite a strong chance of doing well in the handheld market. And here's how I think they need to do it. They just need to be very, very careful with their strategy. And here are a few things that I think could help. One is the integration between the PS4 and the PS Vita, because right now PS Vita is this separate thing that plays Vita games. We have to remember that when the PS Vita came out, the PS3 was still the main console that Sony was using, and now the main console is the PS4 Pro. So they're kind of two consoles away from the PS3 already. And with the PS3, one of the main problems, as I understand it, is that it was very difficult to make games for it because it used a very specific, I think it's called the cell architecture. It's like a bunch of different brains that have to work together. There's like 10 of them. Instead of having a graphics card, it was just like 10 really powerful processors. But apparently, with the PS4, they decided to make it a bit more like a PC architecture. And so you could program games the way that you might for a PC game and still be able to deploy it easily with, you know, only so few adjustments to make it work on the PS4. And so, now that we have this PC architecture, which we have kind of, how do you say, admitted is going to be easier for development than making stuff with the PS3 code, then potentially, if we could use the same architecture, and I don't know if this is actually possible, I'm 100% just speculating here. If it's possible to program games to make a new kind of Vita, let's call it just the Vita 2 for now. If it were possible to make a Vita 2, which had a PC-style processor in it, yes, it means it might need a fan as well. But even the Switch has a fan, and it only fires up every now and then just to clean the insides, but for the most part, I never hear the fan on the Switch. So I know that it's possible to run a very powerful processor and just have a small fan in it just for every now and then cleaning out the insides of the device. In that way, we could bring the PS4 and the Vita closer together, because when the PS4 came out, it was too late for Vita to become more PS4-like because it was too late. They had already developed the architecture, people were already developing games for it, it was too late at that point. But if they made a new PS Vita, and on the inside put, I don't know, an Intel chip, and had, I don't know, AMD or NVIDIA graphics, or, I don't know, Pro VR, I can't even remember the name of all the graphics card companies. Anyway, hold on, let me just move the camera back up. Okay, let's put the coffee somewhere else. Today I'm using my color changing mug, so look forward to the moment when it changes color. We are going to enjoy some, what's the name of the place that sells this coffee? Okay, I've forgotten the name of their coffee shop already, but I'll remember later. Workman coffee. Workwoman coffee. Work coffee. But getting back to this topic about the PlayStation 4 and the Vita, I think if they could bring the PS4 and Vita closer and closer together, I think that the closer and closer together they can bring it, the more successful and, you know, the better for us gamers that it would be. Because if we had a console, which, let's say, in the perfect dream scenario, it ran PS4 games on here, then essentially every time you bought a game digitally on your PS4 and it would give you the rights to download it for free on your Vita, that would be amazing. Sony would sell a lot of consoles, which is not exactly what they want to do. They want to sell software. But if there were two incentives, if every time you said, you buy this PS4 game, it also runs on your Vita, then it's like, whoa, yeah, I'll spend an extra $10 if you let me do that. I think they actually had a plan like that. They had a cross-buy system. They're like, if you pay extra, I think you'd be able to get it on both platforms, but I think it just never panned out. And it was difficult if you think about it, because programming for PS3, programming for PS4, and programming for PS Vita was a very different thing. I think they were all very separated. But if now, looking to the future, where it's mostly, let's use the PS4 architecture again in PS4, and then I don't know what comes after PS4 Pro, but it'll probably be the same architecture, because right now it's just too soon to move on to a new architecture and lose all the games that people were playing. And this brings me on to a really important discussion about the PC, because now that the PS4 has been designed as a supercharged PC, and as you've seen that we're not moving from PS4 to PS5, we've gone from PS4 to PS4 Pro, you can see that it's trying. I mean, people talk about it all the time, how consoles are becoming more and more like PCs. The PS4, when you think about it, is like a PS4 with upgraded parts. If they could somehow get the same architecture into the PS Vita, then imagine if you could play all your PS4 games just on low settings. In fact, you could probably choose. It would be great if you could just choose to have no bilinear filtering, but you want to have high polygon counts and no anti-aliasing, the way that you can do on a PC. That way you could choose how low performance it goes, really. It would be easier to understand the reviews, because right now it's like, if you gotta choose between the PS4 version and the PS Vita version, just go for the PS4 version. But now, if in the new system, which I'm just dreaming about, it's not a real thing, if there were a way to have a low poly setting on the Vita, then you could say, hey, I want to have 60 FPS gameplay, and you could prioritize the frame rate and play games at the speed that you want, as opposed to going, okay, the PS Vita version is locked at 30 FPS because we wanted to prioritize textures. But that's not how it works on the PC. On the PC, it's like, run it on any PC you want, and you just choose what you want to prioritize. The anti-aliasing, whether it's the frame rate, whether it's the texture quality, whether it's the polygon count, anything. All these things are things that on the PC you can change. And because the PS4 is becoming a bit more and more and more like a PC, I think it's quite feasible that that could be the future of portable gaming, being able to choose your low specs. Right now with the Nintendo Switch, which is in a separate bag right now. So I just meant to grab my Switch because this is an important point. On the Switch, it already runs games at 720p, which means it's running at a lower screen resolution to ideally get the same frame rates and the same textures and all that same quality that you see when you play in docked mode on your TV. So I'm just thinking, wouldn't it be nice if we could choose which aspects we can lower and which aspects we can increase in order to get better quality textures? Maybe we want to get nice screenshots, and so we want to increase the texture quality, and we don't really mind about frame rates. And also maybe we're streaming and we're not streaming at 60 FPS, we're streaming at 30 FPS, so let's increase the quality of other things and lower the quality of the frame rate so that we can prioritize streaming. Anyway, I think in the future all this customization is stuff that people will really appreciate and could potentially lead to a successful PS Vita 2. So that's my dream scenario, is having the PS Vita 2 mostly play PS4 games. I think marketing-wise it would actually sell more PS4 games because of the possibility that you could play them on your PS Vita as well. That was one of the biggest issues with the PS4. Sorry, I don't mean with the PS4. One of the biggest issues with the PS4 and the Vita trying to coexist, and even the PS3, is that sometimes there were 3 versions of the same game, and if they didn't offer cross-buy, and I'm gonna go out there and say that most of them didn't, I wanted it, but most companies didn't offer cross-buy. It was like, well, if you want to play portably, then you've just got to buy it again. And it's such a kick in the face if you've already spent $80 on Sword Art Online, whatever the 50th version of that game, and it's like, now buy it again on your Vita. It's such a kick in the face, but that's what happens with the especially the handheld gaming market is getting kicked in the face. So that's one of my strategies, is to have basically the Vita running PS4 games. So let's just say, for instance, that running PS4 games isn't possible on the Vita and that it has to have games specifically programmed for it. In that case, I would suggest to Sony, if you could just make it as easy as possible to port to the Vita, and like at least have a similar programming structure, then that would make life easier for people. But here's another thing that where the Vita could survive, or rather the PS Vita 2 if there were going to be one. It could also be really successful if it were backwards compatible with old Vita games, and if you made it Switch-like. And when I say Switch-like, I mean if you gave it a dock. It wouldn't have to be exactly the same. Maybe you could just have a cable coming out of the bottom of here into a little docking box which connects to HDMI on your TV, or maybe a projector. If I could connect my PS Vita to a projector and just play games on any white wall that I have nearby me. That sort of thing. I think that the idea of being able to expand your portable games to the larger screen is really important. And why? Because now that portable games are running in HD, obviously this one isn't, but if other games consoles are running at HD or in general Retina type displays, it's annoying that we can't play them on the big screen because we know the information is there. If we had the Switch running at 720 HD or 1080p HD, if we knew that it could do that and that and they weren't letting us run it on a larger screen, it's like, why? Why not? It has a high enough resolution that if we put it on a large screen, it won't look bad, so why won't you let us do it? So these little things that are obvious, I think Sony, if they allowed that for the PS Vita, and also if it had backwards compatibility, that would be amazing. Okay, so the old games might not run at full HD, but maybe they could do some filtering or they could up-res the game sort of superficially, and I think a lot of people would be fine with that, as long as it, doesn't have a lot of the really obvious blurry stuff. If they could just kind of double the resolution, and in fact, I think if you just quadruple the number of pixels in here, you end up with something which is pretty much like normal HD. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't done the math. The important thing here is that we're not talking about a brand new handheld. Well, I don't know actually. Maybe calling it a brand new handheld would be better, but I think if you called it Vita 2, then you have that benefit of the back catalogue. And right now we know that it is totally possible to run PS1 games on here. It's totally possible to run PS3 quality games. That's what most PS Vita games came in at. They were mostly PS3 quality. If a new handheld came out, it would make sense to be able to emulate all the Vita games. You could, I don't know, do another Sony thing where you try and sell them again at full price on the download store. I think that would be mean, since we have PlayStation accounts. This is something I really want them to do, is to take advantage of the fact that they have a community which has bought into the PlayStation system, which means we have games purchased on PSN. And if you came out with a PS5 now and told people that you won't be able to play a lot of the games on it that you bought digitally on PS4, people would be pretty pissed off, I think. In the old days, it was like, okay, well now I'm going to move up to PS5, I'll just sell all the discs of my PS4. I won't get much money for them, I might get between $5 and $10 per game, but I can get a little bit of money from those games, which I can't play anymore because I only really want one console plugged into my TV. Just say, for instance, that's who you were. If they came out with a PS5 now, and a lot of people have bought all their games digitally, I feel like one of the promises of digital is that you will still be able to download them and play them on future consoles. So if they came out with a console now and you weren't able to download your purchases and play old PS4 games on a PS5, if there were such a thing, I think people would be pretty pissed off. But since they do have a store and a download list, a bit like Steam, I would love to see them go more in that direction. Because with Steam, no matter what PC I buy, no matter how many times I upgrade my PC, if I just deactivate Steam on my old computer and activate it on my new computer, I can re-download my games and play on my current PC. And I think it's sensible to suggest that a handheld could work in the same way, that it's just the lower spec version of the PSN device that you're using. In fact, it would be nice if they could just get rid of PS Vita and PS4 and just call them all PSN devices. They're just Sony-specific computers. There's the PSN normal, the PSN Pro, and then there's the PSN low spec. And that's what this could be. Maybe the battery doesn't run very long, but the thing is, look how many people bought the Switch. Like, the battery life is not great on this. In fact, PS Vita has incredibly good battery life compared to my Switch. But I still play it. Like, I'll just bring a battery around with me. With this one, I've been bringing around my Anchor battery. People will make that sacrifice. People will do stuff like that. They will bring batteries around to make things possible if there is enough incentive. And I think if you give people enough treats, like you can download your old games on your new console, that's a treat enough that I wouldn't mind the bad battery life, so that I can play. I'll bring another battery around with me. Anyway guys, this is not like a massively serious discussion. I think it's unlikely that Sony will never bring out another handheld. I mean, there's just too many people commuting around, and not even just people commuting, but people, you know, children who are in the back of the car and they've got nothing to do because their parents are forcing them to come with them places for 3 hours. I was like that as a kid, and I was really glad. My life as a child, like for hours on end, I would be like traveling from one state to another, and it really made a difference that I had my Neo Geo Pocket Color, or if I had my Game Boy Color, or even just the original Game Boy. And one of my favorite ones was the Game Gear. Like, I loved the games on Game Gear. I knew full well that Game Gear was losing to Game Boy, but I didn't care. I was just like, I like the games that I've got on my Game Gear. I know they're not as good as the Sega Genesis versions of Sonic and stuff, but I've got like the Game Gear version of Sonic, and I don't care. I'm gonna enjoy it, and no one can stop me. And no one can stop you. If you enjoy Switch, or if you enjoy your Vita, if you enjoy your PS4, you don't want a PS4 Pro, stuff like that, no one can stop you from enjoying the things that you enjoy. So don't let anyone tell you that you have to upgrade, or that you have to be worried about your console dying. If the PS Vita were basically just the PSN low spec model, basically, the portable low spec short battery life version of a PS4, basically, the only thing that kind of worries me is that Sony might think it has to succeed. And what I would love to see Sony take a more Microsoft approach. I know that's kind of dangerous, but so with Microsoft's approach to the Surface tablets, it's like they don't actually really care if people buy them. They want to make them as a model, like, hey, this is the kind of awesome computer you can make. This is the kind of versatile device you can make using Windows, because Windows is the sort of thing that you can use on a tablet or on desktop. That's how flexible Windows is. And so if Surface does well, it means that Windows will sell more. And also if Surface does well, other people make Surface copy type devices that look almost exactly like Surface. And Microsoft doesn't really mind, because as far as they care, they just want more people to buy Windows. If Sony can bring themselves to not worry about this device selling on its own, if they can just say, as long as you buy PS4 games and play them in low spec mode, that's your choice, but if you want to play low spec mode PS4 games, we also offer this Vita 2 device. And I would be fine with that, and it wouldn't even matter if the Vita 2 was a success, because they wouldn't have to sell Vita consoles. In fact, if they sold 0 Vita consoles, it would be fine, because people would still buy PS4 games to play on their PS4 or their PS4 Pro. So there you have it. That's my idea, ladies and gentlemen. PS4 low spec. Sony, make it happen. I'll buy it. I mean, that's pretty much what this channel is about. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, share the links and all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next NihongoGamer video. Cheers.